The movie begins with a ticket inspector named Joe working on a train. The stress on his face was impossible to miss. He had been waiting for a promotion for a long time, but once again, luck wasn't on his side. Instead, another coworker got promoted. The reason was simple. Joe was too soft-hearted for the job. He could never bring himself to strictly fine passengers. Meanwhile, his coworker was extremely strict, which made him the company's favorite choice. On the same train worked a young woman named Ellen, who served tea and snacks to the passengers. Joe secretly had feelings for her, but he never found the courage to confess. That night, Joe was assigned to the night shift because his coworker was on leave. As soon as the train departed, Joe began checking tickets. After finishing his rounds, Joe returned to his seat. It was past midnight when the speeding train suddenly came to a stop in the middle of a dense forest. The driver assumed the train had hit something, so he climbed down to investigate. A few moments later, he discovered the dead body of a deer trapped beneath the train. But just as he tried to move it, a strange noise echoed from deep within the forest. Nervously, the driver turned around, and in the very next second, a savage, monster-like creature lunged at him, tearing him apart mercilessly. Back inside the train, the passengers had no idea what had just happened outside. Joe noticed that the driver had been gone for far too long, so he and Ellen headed toward the engine room to look for him. But the driver was nowhere to be found. They immediately tried contacting the control room, but the heavy rain and violent storm had completely knocked out the signal. Meanwhile, the passengers inside the train were growing restless. Everyone kept asking why the train had stopped. The atmosphere slowly became tense. With no other option, Joe lied and told them there was a technical issue with the train and that the driver was fixing it, which could take a few hours. But hearing this only made the passengers furious. One woman angrily shouted that she would go speak to the driver herself. Now Joe had no choice but to tell the truth. Nervously, he admitted that they had no idea where the driver had disappeared to. That was enough to throw the entire coach into chaos. Some passengers started complaining loudly, while others demanded refunds for their tickets. That's when a man named Adrian suggested that instead of waiting there helplessly, everyone should walk 3 kilometers down the tracks to the nearest station. Many passengers agreed with him. Joe tried to stop them, but nobody listened. Finally, with no other choice left, he opened the train doors, and the passengers began walking along the railway tracks into the dark forest night. At first, everything seemed fine, but after a while, strange noises started echoing from deep inside the forest. At first, everyone assumed it was probably some wild animal, but then Joe, who was leading the group, suddenly spotted something that made his blood run cold. Near the tracks lay the driver's corpse, brutally torn apart. Half of his body was missing, as if some creature had devoured him alive. The moment Joe saw it, he realized something unbelievably dangerous was hiding in the forest. He immediately screamed, "Run! Get back to the train!" And then terrifying roars exploded throughout the forest. Everyone started running for their lives. Some people slipped on the wet ground, while others cried and looked back in panic. It felt as if the creature was hunting them from every direction. But somehow, they all managed to sprint back inside the train. However, the old woman running behind them wasn't so lucky. She was just about to climb into the train when the door suddenly shut, trapping her leg in between. At that exact moment, the horrifying monster arrived. The passengers inside desperately tried pulling the old woman in with all their strength. After a painful struggle, they finally managed to drag her inside, but by then, it was already too late. Her leg had been shredded into pieces, as if some savage beast had ripped it apart while she was still alive. Seeing such a horrific injury caused in mere seconds made everyone on the train tremble with fear. Joe quickly wrapped cloth around her wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Then he rushed off to make sure every train door was securely locked. But suddenly, the entire train began shaking violently. The monster had started attacking from outside. Terrifying banging noises echoed through the cabins, forcing everyone to hold their breath in fear. Nobody even dared to make the slightest sound. Outside, the creature scraped its massive claws across the train's metal body. This continued for what felt like forever, and then suddenly, everything went silent. No sounds, no movement. Joe slowly returned to the driver's cabin and tried starting the train again, but nothing happened. The train was completely dead. Now nobody knew what to do next. Then suddenly, a young girl's phone started ringing. The moment everyone heard it, hope flashed across their faces. People quickly told her to answer the call and tell someone about their situation. But in their panic, they forgot one terrifying thing. The sound could also attract the monster outside. The poor girl barely managed to say a word. when suddenly, a long, horrifying claw shot through the window, and in the very next second, she was dragged outside along with her phone. Everything happened so fast that nobody even had time to react. The train window had completely shattered. People started screaming. Some were crying, while others were frozen in terror. And the scariest part was, no one had even gotten a clear look at the monster's face yet. To save themselves, everyone immediately rushed toward the next train carriage. By now, the fear inside the train had grown even worse because they knew something unnatural was waiting outside, something that was neither human nor animal. Everyone finally realized that if they didn't find a way to fight back, they would all die one by one. That's when an old man suggested using the train's tools as weapons. People quickly grabbed metal rods, hammers, and anything else they could use to defend themselves. They also reinforced the windows with iron bars to make them stronger. For a brief moment, everyone felt safer. But the real horror was only beginning. The old woman who had been attacked by the monster suddenly started getting worse. She began vomiting blood violently, and the most horrifying part was that her teeth started falling out along with the blood. Panic instantly spread through the train again. Nobody could understand what was happening to her. Meanwhile, the passengers suddenly realized that one person was missing. Everyone started searching frantically. After a while, Joe found the overweight passenger trapped inside the train's bathroom. The poor guy had been stuck there because of stomach problems, but when he tried coming out, he realized the bathroom door had jammed shut. His panic grew worse. He started banging desperately on the door, but then the situation became even more terrifying because the monster had silently climbed onto the roof of the train. In the next second, the ceiling burst open violently, and a massive, horrifying hand reached inside. Before Joe could unlock the bathroom door with the key, the monster attacked the man inside. Painful screams echoed from the bathroom, and within seconds, everything went silent. Then slowly, blood began flowing out from beneath the toilet door. The sight drained all the color from Joe's face. He immediately ran back toward the others, trying to return to safety, but the terrified passengers refused to open the door for him. They feared the monster might enter right behind him. Joe kept screaming and begging, and then heavy footsteps started echoing from behind him. The monster was getting closer. At the very last second, the people inside finally gathered enough courage to open the door and pull Joe back in. Everyone immediately tried forcing the door shut again, but this time, the creature seemed far stronger than before. Within moments, the train's final line of defense was destroyed, and then, for the very first time, the monster revealed itself in front of everyone. It looked somewhat human, but its face was so horrifying and deformed that everyone was left speechless in terror. Its eyes glowed like a wild beast's, its body was drenched in blood, and the sound of its voice felt like death itself was standing right in front of them. Now everyone believed Joe was doomed. The monster opened its blood-covered mouth and was just about to pounce on him when Ellen suddenly stepped forward and drove an iron rod straight into its side. But the creature flung her away with a single powerful strike. That gave Joe an opening. He attacked from behind, and soon the other passengers gathered enough courage to grab their weapons and join the fight. Screams echoed throughout the train as everyone attacked the monster together, and finally, after a brutal struggle, they managed to bring the creature down. Everyone was shocked. The monster that had seemed unstoppable just moments ago had been defeated far more easily than anyone expected. But then they noticed something that completely changed the situation. On the monster's hand was a human ring. Seeing that made everyone suspect that the creature had once been human. Maybe some mysterious virus had transformed it into this horrifying beast. At that moment, the old man suddenly remembered a terrifying incident from years ago. He explained that when he was young, a horrific train accident had happened on these very tracks. The train had derailed, and when the rescue team arrived, every passenger was found dead. Everyone stepped back in fear. Its broken face twitched violently, while horrifying sounds escaped from its mouth. Without wasting a second, Joe grabbed a fire extinguisher and repeatedly smashed the monster's head with all his strength until its skull was completely crushed. Everyone thought the nightmare was finally over, but they had no idea that before dying, the monster had been calling out to the others, which meant more creatures were now heading toward them. Meanwhile, the old woman who had been bitten earlier started changing even more violently. Her body slowly began transforming. Her eyes turned red, and she stopped behaving like a normal human being. It became painfully clear that she had also been infected by the same virus. Seeing this, Adrian decided they needed to kill her before she fully transformed into another monster. He grabbed a weapon and moved toward her, but Joe stopped him and knocked him unconscious. unconscious with a hard punch. Still, because of the growing danger, the group decided to tie up both the old woman and Adrian as a precaution. For the moment, the first monster was dead. But everyone knew the real nightmare was far from over. Simply hiding inside the train wasn't going to save them anymore. Among the passengers was a young engineer named Billy, who specialized in machines. After thinking carefully, the group came to one conclusion. If they could repair the train, they might still escape alive. And just like that, everyone got to work, because death was waiting for them outside in the forest. Kate and the old man stayed inside one of the train cars, while Joe and Ellen positioned themselves inside the driver's cabin, ready to start the train the moment they got the chance. Meanwhile, Billy went outside with the man wearing glasses to find and repair the damage. After searching for some time, Billy finally discovered a leak in the fuel pipeline and immediately started fixing it. But then, the man standing guard suddenly heard someone screaming for help from deep inside the forest. Instead of staying alert, the idiot wandered into the woods alone. As he followed the cries, he reached a tree, and the sight in front of him nearly made his heart stop. The same young girl who had been dragged away earlier was hanging from the tree, and beside her stood a horrifying monster. The man screamed in terror and turned to run for his life, but there wasn't just one monster out there. There were many. Within seconds, he was surrounded from every direction. His painful screams echoed throughout the forest, mixed with the terrifying roars of the creatures. Back inside the train, the others heard the horrifying sounds and once again froze in fear. It felt like death itself was slowly getting closer to them. Meanwhile, Billy finally managed to repair the fuel pipe, but at that exact moment, he realized the monsters were heading toward him. He instantly understood that staying outside meant certain death. As the creatures searched for him, crouching low and scanning the area, he was nowhere to be seen. Because the moment Billy sensed danger, he had already hidden beneath the train, hanging tightly underneath so the monsters wouldn't spot him. At the same time, Joe and Ellen suddenly noticed the control lights inside the driver's cabin flicker back on. They realized the train might finally work again. The moment they started the engine, a monster suddenly appeared right in front of the tracks. Panicking, Ellen immediately pushed the train forward without thinking, completely forgetting that Billy was still hanging underneath the train. Poor Billy clung desperately to the underside, fighting to stay alive. Meanwhile, things inside the passenger carriage had spiraled completely out of control. The old woman who had been bitten earlier had now fully transformed into a monster. With one violent movement, she snapped the ropes binding her hands and feet. Terrified, Kate quickly untied Adrian so he could help. Adrian saw the transformed old woman slowly approaching the old man. He rushed forward to save him, but the monster sent him flying backward with a single slap. Then the old woman slowly moved toward her elderly husband, and the most horrifying part was, even after turning into a monster, she still seemed to recognize him, as if somewhere deep inside that creature, a small piece of her humanity was still alive. Meanwhile, terrified Kate had no idea that the monsters outside were slowly forcing the train door open. Adrian tried to save her, but it was already too late. With no other choice, he kicked both Kate and the monster out of the train. Then he grabbed a large pair of pliers and rushed to save the old man. But just as he was about to kill the transformed woman, the old man stopped him himself. He shoved Adrian back with a slap because he couldn't bear to watch his wife die. Adrian fell to the ground helplessly, forced to watch as the old woman slowly tore her own husband apart alive. Meanwhile, Billy, still hanging beneath the train, was completely exhausted. His strength was giving out. In desperation, he disconnected the very fuel pipe he had just repaired. Seconds later, the train came to a stop again. Joe and Ellen had no idea what had happened, so they hurried back toward the passenger carriage. But the moment they entered, a horrifying sight greeted them. The old woman, now fully transformed into a monster, was attacking Adrian. Joe and Ellen worked together to kill the creature and barely managed to save Adrian's life. But the nightmare was far from over, because more monsters were now approaching the train from outside. Their terrifying roars were growing louder and closer. The moment Joe heard them, he slammed the carriage door shut. But everyone knew it wouldn't hold for long. The creatures could break through at any moment. That's when Joe decided that staying trapped inside the train was suicide. Their only chance was to escape into the forest. But suddenly, Adrian attacked Joe from behind. The truth was, Adrian wanted one person to stay behind inside the train so the monsters would focus on them while the others escaped. A brutal fight instantly broke out between the two men. Punches flew. They shoved each other violently, crashing onto the floor as they fought. But after a while, Joe started losing strength. Then, At the perfect moment, Ellen jumped in and saved him. During the struggle, Adrian suddenly noticed the key still hanging in the train door. Before Joe could react, Adrian unlocked the door and escaped alone. And in the very next second, the monsters smashed their way inside the train. Now Joe and Ellen were completely trapped in a death trap. There was no option left except to fight. That's when Billy suddenly appeared. Holding a bottle filled with gasoline, he hurled it directly at the monsters. Flames erupted instantly, forcing the creatures back for a few moments. Then Billy grabbed a burning torch and tried to keep them away. Because of him, Joe and Ellen finally got the chance to break through another door and escape. But when Billy tried to follow them, the monsters caught him. Joe and Ellen paused for only a moment before running for their lives, but the creatures had no intention of letting their prey escape so easily. Soon, the terrifying roars of the monsters echoed behind them once again. Joe realized that if they kept running together, neither of them would survive. And in that moment, he finally understood how much Ellen truly meant to him. He loved her, and that's why he made the ultimate decision. Joe chose to stay behind and hold the monsters off so Ellen could escape safely. Ellen didn't want to leave him. Tears filled her eyes as she realized Joe was sacrificing himself for her, but Joe screamed at her to run, and with a heavy heart, Ellen finally ran away. Moments later, the monsters reached Joe. He fought until his very last breath, but in the end, he was overwhelmed and brutally killed by the horrifying creatures. Meanwhile, selfish Adrian didn't get very far either, because chasing him through the darkness wasn't just the remaining monsters anymore. Now Joe had become one of them too, and in the end, after that entire horrifying night, Ellen was the only survivor left alive. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing movie recaps. See you in the next story.